All right, what is up? I said earlier out on Twitter that I was going to put a chart together so we can kind of learn from each other here. But let's kind of get there's going to be a lot on this chart, so I'm going to kind of run through it. The whole gist is pretty much trying to tell uh, why the 9100 floor I think is pretty significant. Not that it can't test again, but it's already kind of tested there, which is good. But if it does retest, that's where I would personally be a buyer. And again, not financial advice. This goes against my book. I don't know what you're doing, but I just wanted to give you areas that I'm looking at for support and resistance and possible changes in the market. All right, there is a lot on this chart. So let's first of all, this is Bitcoin. It's a weekly chart. Um, the two indicators I have, the ADX, which is the black line, which measures the trend strength in the market. The green and the red are directional index lines. The green is the positive directional index, and the red is the negative directional index. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Down here, the orange line is the RSI, and this dotted line in here is just the breakdown that I have between anytime the RSI is above this dotted line, it's in the bullish zone. Anytime it's below it, it's the bearish zone. So this line itself is a support and resistance level on the indicator. On the chart, the black lines here are trend lines. I got a couple circles in there because there's a couple areas I'm going to show you. The arrows are just areas I'm going to show you. The red lines here are just Fibonacci retracements, and then the vertical lines are when the breaks of the trend lines were happening, and I'll show you kind of detail to what was going on at that time. All right. And the blue line here is the 55 exponential moving average, which is another interesting line to watch. All right, there's a lot on here, so let's start back here at back here in 2014, 15, 16 here on this bearish trend as we're going down to this point. Right at this point, when the price broke the trend line to the upside, this is the area right in here that broke the RSI out of the bearish zone, so it was all down in here for a while, and then it broke up into a bullish zone, and as you can see, we've been bullish since. The areas that I like to see. Take a step back. The orange is the 8 exponential moving average against the 55, and I really like this crossover because the red boxes I have on here, I see the 55 exponential moving average is acting as support. When the 8 crosses down through that, and that's what this little red square is at this crossing time, the 8 exponential moving average is crossed down to the downside, and then all of a sudden that kind of transforms this blue 55 exponential moving average into resistance. Tested there again, and it wasn't until this red point when the orange 8 exponential moving average crossed up through it, and then all of a sudden the 55 exponential moving average becomes support. So as you can see, the 8 exponential moving average stays above it on the rest of the way. Price tests right here on this trend line, which is also the 55 exponential moving average. It goes up further, all the way up to this point, and then the 8 exponential moving average crosses down here. To where now the 55 exponential moving average acts as resistance. As you can see, the price keeps bumping up against it, and then it kind of drops here, and then the 8 exponential moving average on this red box crosses back up through it. So now the blue 55 exponential moving average becomes support. So that's one of the main areas that I'm looking at as a support level, and right now the 55 exponential moving average is at 73.78. I don't think it's quite going to get there, and I'll explain here in a minute. Next thing, the break of the trend lines. Right at this point of the break of the trend line is when the RSI bumped out of the bearish zone and into the bullish zone. Right at this point, as you get down to here, the trend line here. As price retraced back down here and it broke back up to the upside here at this point, same kind of thing happened on the RSI. It came from the bearish into the bullish zone. I don't have the trend line drawn where it was busted here, but as you can see, you could draw a trend line in here to where it broke there. But what I wanted to look at was, it's kind of interesting because when this trend line here was broken to the upside on price, that's why I have it circled here, because this is pretty significant. It holds as support, as resistance, and then it breaks the 55 exponential moving average a little bit after it breaks the trend line. And at that point down here, I have some arrows that show the ADX is increasing for the bulls, and we were also breaking into the bullish zone on the RSI. So there's a lot going on right at this point. So you break the trend line, you break the 55 exponential moving average, and then price goes up and then hits the 61.8% level from this high and this low, and then comes back and retraces back down to the 55 exponential moving average as support, and then also the trend line too, or actually it was probably the start of the trend line, but the 55 exponential average was tested there. So this is a very interesting scenario that's happening. Trend line break, 55 exponential break, moves up, hits the 61.8% as resistance, comes back down and hits as support, and then takes off to the upside. Now keep that scenario in mind as we jump over to where we're at now. Here you got the trend line from the high at 19,000 down, as it's coming down, tests right here, comes down, and it's at this point it breaks. So when you look at this vertical line, the ADX is starting to increase. At that point, the bulls are starting to take over with the positive directional index, and this is when the RSI comes out of the bullish or the bearish zone and into the bullish zone. But the interesting thing is the price breaks the trend line. Then it breaks the 55 exponential moving average as the 8 crosses through there too. So there's a crossover right here. The price goes through the 55. The price moves up to the 61.8% of this high and this low. So this 61.8% level is similar to how the price went up to this level from this high and low, comes down and hits support on the moving average or the trend line. So what I'm thinking, and this is why I like the 9100, is because as price comes down here, and as the moving average continues to increase as time goes on, if this kind of converges together, like if this price comes down and this comes up, it's going to be roughly around that 9100 floor if this kind of converges together. So if we get the support or the resistance hit, comes back and hits support again, I like that 9100. If it comes all the way down to the moving average, whatever that moving average is at that time, that's what it could be. It could be 8500 if it does come down. So that's something that we're going to have to look at. But I like buying on dips in here anywhere. We don't need that. I don't know why that popped up, so we'll delete that real fast. Why I like buying on dips here is because I like the scenario of it comes up, kind of tests, and keeps continuing, and I like how it hit the 61.8%, starting to consolidate a little bit, a little bit sideways and lower. But I'm going to keep an eye on a couple things. The ADX, it's dropping a little, it's starting to drop a little bit, but it's definitely in a zone where the buyers are in control because the positive directional index is still elevated. So no signs of crossing here, so the bulls are still in control. The RSI is still above this line that I like as a support level. So as long as the RSI is above this level, we're still in the bullish zone. So we still got strength. We're still in the bullish zone on the oscillator. And then we also have support levels as in, oh, that's what that trend line was. Ha! Took my trend line away. This trend line right here, right there where it's touching there and there, it works its way up. So if this converges right at this point, the trend line or the moving average is going to bring some support to the market. So I like buying on dips anywhere in here. Now if we start to get down to this moving average and the 8 looks like it's going to cross down through the 5 or the 55, then that's going to be a danger signal for me. Most likely we'll be busting to the RSI to the downside, and this will probably change on this indicator too, because every time, with this crossover, that's going to be a signal like over here that's going to turn into a bearish market. But right now everything's signaling to the upside. So I know there's a lot on this chart. I mean, there's and hopefully you can see it and it's all clear. But that's why the 9100 has been my floor. for a little while as it came up and tested here. But a couple of things to watch for going into the future, just to kind of recap. If the 8 exponential moving average crosses down through the 55, that's going to be a signal, a sell signal possibility. Any crossover of the directional index lines as the ADX is increasing, whenever directional index line takes control. And then we also have the RSI. If that dips down, it breaks its support and becomes resistance on this line, that's going to tell us that we're moving into a bearish market. But right now, none of that is happening. Buy dips. At least that's what I'm doing. Not financial advice. And let's follow this trend line to the upside and this moving average to the upside, and let's get this thing going, and let's start to break the 61.8% like it did over here. And then it went up to the previous high, tested a little bit, and then it broke off into exuberance. So I think you could do the same thing. Bounce here, retest the 13.4, and maybe break through, and then work its way back up to that previous high. I'm still thinking that can happen over the next 5-6 months. So hold on to your hats, because it's going to get crazy. So happy trading, and again, any questions or comments, I'm out on Twitter at FiboSwanny. Peace out.